Claire Bennett was holding 2 china plates when the doorbell rang. The sound startled her, and the edge of one plate struck the other with a delicate chime. She checked them carefully, but the white porcelain hadn't chipped. Claire set the plates on the dining table. They used their wedding china only a few times a year: Thanksgiving, Christmas, and their anniversary. 27 years earlier, her mother had helped her choose the pattern. Thin silver branches curling around the rim. "Don't pick anything too trendy," her mother had said. "Good things are supposed to last." Claire wiped her hands on her apron and went to answer the door. A delivery driver in a Navy uniform stood on the porch. Across the street, her neighbor was unloading grocery bags from the back of an SUV. An orange plastic pumpkin stuck out of one of them. Even though Halloween was still more than a week away. "Claire Bennett?" the driver asked. "Yes." "Certified letter. I'll need a signature." He held out an electronic pad. Claire signed without really looking. Her hand made the familiar motion. A quick C followed by the long line beneath her last name. "Have a good one." "You too." The envelope felt heavier than an ordinary letter. The upper left corner displayed the name of a finance company she didn't recognize. Claire closed the door and remained in the entryway. The smell of lemon and butter drifted in from the kitchen. Sauce was warming on the stove. The washing machine in the laundry closet off the hall shifted into its spin cycle and began to tremble softly. She slid one finger beneath the envelope flap. The first thing she saw was her name, then the words "Notice of Delinquency." Below them was an amount: $67,214.38. She read the opening paragraph twice. The letter concerned a line of credit issued to Bennett Renovations. After 3 missed payments, the lender was demanding immediate contact. Claire was listed as the personal guarantor. She turned the page, looking for Daniel's name. It appeared in smaller print near the bottom, beside the company's information. Her own name was at the top. Claire could still picture her signature on the delivery driver's screen. Maybe this was a standard notice sent to everyone associated with the company. Maybe the bookkeeper had forgotten to transfer a payment. Daniel had said more than once that banks sent frightening letters over minor problems. But Claire wasn't an owner of Bennett Renovations. At least, she didn't think she was. She set the letter on the console table and took out her phone. Daniel's contact photo was still one she had taken 5 years ago on a beach in South Carolina. He was laughing, holding his sunglasses above his head. Claire remembered what she had said a second before taking the picture, but she could no longer remember what had made him laugh. The call went to voicemail. "Hey, it's me," she said after the tone. "Some letter came about the company. I'm sure it's a mistake. Call me when you get a chance." She paused. "And don't be late tonight." Claire ended the call before her voice could reveal how worried she was. She returned to the dining room. The table was already set with candles, wine glasses, and a small vase of white roses she had bought that morning at Harris Teeter. A lemon pie, Daniel's favorite, was chilling in the refrigerator. Beside it sat a bottle of California wine they had been saving for almost a year. Claire picked up a third napkin, even though the table had only 2 place settings, and began folding it in half. When she noticed what she was doing, she stopped. Then she unfolded the napkin and returned it to the drawer. The family tablet lit up on the kitchen counter. It was still synced with Daniel's phone because Claire had helped him transfer job site photos a few months earlier. Messages had appeared on it before from contractors, clients, and Lucas. This time, the name on the screen was Vanessa Cole. Claire knew her. Vanessa sold the houses Daniel renovated. She had eaten dinner at the same table twice. Once, she had brought Claire a sandalwood candle and told her she had an amazing eye for color. Claire moved closer. There was only one message on the screen. "The condo closes Friday. After that, she can't stop us." Claire didn't touch the tablet. The condo could be an investment property. She could mean a buyer, an owner, or someone at the bank. Vanessa had dozens of clients. Daniel had projects he never discussed at home because Claire didn't like conversations about interest rates, permits, and unreliable subcontractors. That was how he always put it. You don't need to fill your head with all that. Claire looked at the certified letter, then at the 2 plates edged with silver branches. The sauce began to boil over. She hurried to the stove, lowered the heat, and wiped the burner with a paper towel. Then she checked the pie, straightened the wine glasses, and adjusted one of the roses in the vase. Only after that did she pick up the tablet. The message had disappeared from the screen. Claire pressed a button, but the device asked for Daniel's passcode. The old one, the date of their wedding, didn't work. She stood in the middle of the spotless kitchen, holding the locked tablet in one hand and a crumpled paper towel in the other. Her eyes returned to the dark screen. Now she can't stop me. She can't stop us. At 6:30, Claire lowered the oven temperature. At 7, she covered the meat with foil. At 7:25, she checked her phone, even though it was lying in front of her on the kitchen counter and hadn't made a sound. Daniel was usually home by 7 on Thursdays. If he was running late, he called from the job site. Sometimes he complained about traffic on Interstate 485. Sometimes he asked her to leave a plate warming in the oven. But tonight was their anniversary. Claire had reminded him the week before while writing her dentist appointment on the wall calendar. She took off her apron and smoothed her navy dress with both hands. Daniel liked her in that color, or at least he used to. Her phone lit up at 7:42. Running late. Problem at the job site. Don't wait up. Claire stared at the message for several seconds. Then she typed, "Do you remember what today is?" She didn't send it. She erased the words and wrote, "Okay, drive safe." Then she photographed the certified letter. First the front page, then the second. The pictures came out a little dark, so she switched on the light above the kitchen counter and took them again. At 10:12, the garage door finally opened. Claire was sitting at the table with a cup of cold coffee. She had blown out the candles almost an hour earlier. 2 small pools of wax had hardened on the white tablecloth. Daniel came in through the kitchen, holding his phone and keys in one hand. He wore a white shirt with no tie, the sleeves rolled to his elbows. His hair was damp around the temples, as if he had washed his face before coming home. He saw the table and stopped. "Damn." Claire said nothing. "I remembered this morning," he added quickly. Then everything went sideways. The inspector wouldn't sign off on electrical work, and the buyers threatening to walk. I didn't even eat lunch. He leaned down and kissed her temple. His lips barely touched her skin. Claire noticed an unfamiliar scent. Not perfume. Something clean and woodsy like expensive soap. "I'll heat up your dinner," she said. "You don't have to do all that. I can make a sandwich. It's already done." Claire carried his plate to the microwave. Daniel sat down, placed his phone face down, and reached for the bottle of wine. "Should I open it?" "If you want." He looked at her, but Claire had her back to him, watching the plate turn slowly behind the dark microwave glass. When she set the food in front of him, Daniel began eating immediately. For the first few minutes, the only sounds were his fork, the air conditioner, and the clock above the doorway. Claire placed a certified letter beside his hand. Daniel stopped chewing. "I told you I'd handle it. I want to know what it is. It's a company line of credit. Why is my name on it?" He exhaled and pushed his plate back a few inches. "Because you signed the guarantee when we renewed the financing." "When?" "I don't know, Claire. Last spring? Maybe earlier. We talked about it." She waited for him to continue. Daniel picked up his wine glass, though no wine had been poured. "You said you trusted me. I don't remember agreeing to $67,000. You didn't need to remember the amount. It's a revolving line. We use it between projects. The letter says you missed 3 payments." His fingers tightened around the stem of the empty glass. "The bookkeeper set up the automatic payment wrong. I'll call them in the morning." "She set it up wrong for 3 months?" "It happens." His answer came quickly, but not sharply. That was what unsettled Claire. Daniel wasn't angry. He wasn't nervous. He didn't raise his voice. He spoke as if he were explaining an overdue cable bill. Maybe he was right. Maybe she had allowed one message to turn an ordinary mistake into something ugly. Daniel folded the letter in half and placed it beside his keys. "I'll need your signature on another document tomorrow." Claire felt her shoulders tighten. "What document?" "Just a routine consent form for a closing. Nothing serious." "For the condo?" Daniel's hand stopped above his plate. Only for a second. What condo? Claire looked at him. She could have told him about Vanessa's message. She could have asked to see his phone. She could have said the words she had been repeating in her head all day. Instead, she picked up his plate. I don't know. You said something about a closing. One of Vanessa's properties. You probably heard me talking on the phone. Probably. Daniel nodded as if the matter had been settled. He finished dinner without asking why Claire hadn't sat down beside him. Then he opened the refrigerator, saw the lemon pie, and said he would have a piece tomorrow. As they went upstairs, Claire picked up his jacket to hang it in the closet. There were several empty hangers between his dark suits. Not one or two. His gray suit was gone, along with 2 white shirts and the blue jacket he wore when he traveled. The small overnight bag was also missing from the top shelf. Did you take some things to the dry cleaner? She asked. Daniel was unfastening his watch. What? A few shirts and a suit. I left some extra clothes at the office. The job sites are a mess right now. He set his watch on the dresser and went into the bathroom. Claire hung up his jacket. Something jingled inside the inner pocket. She pressed her fingers against the fabric and felt keys, but she didn't take them out. Later, after Daniel had gone to bed, Claire said she was going downstairs to turn off the kitchen lights. From the stairs, she saw him standing at the counter. Daniel was holding the family tablet. His thumb moved quickly across the screen. He paused over Vanessa's name, then tapped several times. By the time Claire entered the kitchen, the screen was dark. Can't sleep? He asked. I wanted to check the doors. I already did. He walked past her and went upstairs. Claire remained in the kitchen. The certified letter was no longer on the table. Daniel had taken it with his keys. She opened the photos on her phone. Both pages were still there. Then Claire opened her notes app and typed Vanessa's message exactly as she remembered it. The condo closes Friday. After that, she can't stop us. Beneath it, she added the date and time. For the first time in 27 years of marriage, Claire wrote something down that wasn't meant to remind Daniel. She wrote it down because she was no longer sure he would tell her the truth. The next morning, Daniel left before Claire woke up. His coffee mug sat in the sink with a dark ring around the inside. Toast crumbs covered the counter, and a container of cream cheese had been left open. Normally, Claire would have put everything away immediately. This time, she only closed the refrigerator. The certified letter was gone. Claire opened the photos on her phone and enlarged the top of the first page. The lender's name was blurry, but she could make out the address of a local branch. The drive took about 20 minutes. Traffic on Interstate 485 had eased by 9, but Claire still missed the turn twice. She rarely went inside banks. Daniel paid the bills, spoke with lenders, and met with their accountant every year. Claire knew approximately how much their mortgage payment was. She knew when the electric bill and car insurance were due, but she couldn't have said exactly how much money was in their joint checking account. Before yesterday, that had felt like trust. Now she didn't know what to call it. The branch was almost empty. An older man was filling out a deposit slip at the counter, while a young woman tried to calm a child in a stroller. The air smelled like coffee and carpet cleaner. Claire gave her name to the employee near the entrance and showed her the photograph of the letter. A few minutes later, she was invited into a small office with glass walls. The nameplate on the desk read, Monica Hayes. Do you have the original letter? Monica asked. My husband took it. He said it was a mistake. Monica looked at the photograph again. I can review the account once I verify your identity. Claire handed over her driver's license. Then she provided the last 4 digits of her social security number, her home address, and her date of birth. Monica typed for almost a minute. Her expression barely changed, but Claire noticed that she had stopped reaching for her coffee. This isn't a mistake, Mrs. Bennett. Claire placed her purse on her lap. But I didn't take out a loan. Bennett Renovations is the borrower. You signed a personal guarantee. I don't work for the company. You don't have to be an employee to serve as a personal guarantor. Monica turned the monitor so Claire could see a scanned document. Her signature was at the bottom. Claire Bennett. It wasn't a typed name or an electronic mark. It was her real signature, written in blue ink. Claire leaned closer. The C tilted slightly to the right. The final T in Bennett extended into a long line. That was how she always signed her name. Can I see the entire document? Monica printed several pages and placed them in front of her. Claire turned them slowly. Her initials appeared on 2 pages. The last page held her full signature and a date, April 14th of the previous year. At first, the date meant nothing to her. Then Claire remembered. Daniel had brought home a thick folder that evening. She had been cooking chicken, talking to Emma about a disagreement with her college roommate, and trying to find a missing insurance receipt at the same time. Daniel had spread the papers across the kitchen counter. It's a financing renewal, same thing as last time. He had flipped through the pages and pointed to the places where she needed to sign. Claire had even joked that one day he was going to sell her along with the house. Daniel had told her no one could afford her. She remembered smiling. "Yes," Claire said quietly. "That's my signature." Monica folded her hands on the desk. The account is 3 payments past due. The last successful payment was made in July. My husband said the bookkeeper set up the automatic payment incorrectly. Monica glanced at the monitor. Several attempted drafts were returned because there weren't enough funds in the linked account. Claire felt the strap of her purse cutting into her palm. So the money wasn't there? I can only discuss this credit account. But the automatic payment was set up correctly. Daniel hadn't merely avoided an explanation. He had invented one before Claire finished asking the question. Monica showed her the transaction history. Several large transfers had gone to Bennett Renovations. Others had gone to a company whose name Claire had already seen, Blue Heron Property Group. "What company is that?" Claire asked. "I don't have information about its owners. We can only see the recipient of the transfers." Claire ran one finger down the list. $25,000. $17,000. Another transfer for just over $11,000. Could my husband move this money without me? Once the line of credit was opened, the company had access to the funds. They didn't need your approval for each individual transfer. But if the company doesn't pay, I have to? Monica didn't answer immediately. The lender can seek repayment from the personal guarantor. Beyond the glass wall, a bank employee laughed at something a coworker had said. The sound was muted, as if it came from another room entirely. Claire looked down at her signature. She wanted to blame Daniel. She wanted to say that he had deceived her, slipping documents in front of her between dinner and a phone call with their daughter. But the signature was still hers. Daniel hadn't held her hand. He hadn't forced her to pick up the pen. He had simply known that Claire wouldn't read the pages. Her phone vibrated inside her purse. Daniel's name appeared on the screen. For the first time in years, Claire watched her husband's call come in and didn't answer. When the phone stopped ringing, Monica gently pushed the documents toward her. "I recommend keeping copies." "I will. There's something else." Claire looked up. Monica turned back to the computer. "This line of credit isn't the only obligation connected to your name in our system." Claire slowly placed her phone face down on the desk. "Show me the rest." Monica showed Claire another account. This time, it was a credit card open for purchasing construction materials. The current balance was just under $9,000. "I've never used this card," Claire said. "It was open online about 18 months ago. You're listed as the primary account holder. And my husband? An authorized user." Claire looked at the email address where the monthly statements had been sent. She recognized it. It was an old account she had created years earlier when she was helping Daniel prepare client presentations. Claire barely used it anymore, but her husband knew the password. "Can you tell me what was purchased of the card?" Monica opened the recent transactions. Paint, light fixtures, tile, tool rentals. Several large purchases from furniture stores. One charge came from an expensive furniture showroom in downtown Charlotte. Claire remembered the store. 3 months earlier, Vanessa had posted a photo of an interior featuring the same white sofa and 2 leather chairs. Claire had shown the picture to Daniel and said the room looked cold. He told her that was what modern buyers liked. "There's also a home equity line connected to the house," Monica said. "It's in both your names." Claire looked up. "We closed that. The account is still open." "No, we used it for the roof a few years ago, and then we paid it off." Monica turned the monitor. Almost the entire available limit had been used. Claire stared at the numbers, but their meaning didn't register immediately. She remembered the office with beige walls where she and Daniel had signed the original paperwork. She remembered the plastic bottle of water someone gave her. She remembered Daniel explaining that the line would remain open in case the house ever needed an emergency repair. Claire had asked if that was safe. Daniel had smiled. "That's why I handle the money, and you make the house look good." She had taken it as a compliment. When was the money withdrawn? Claire asked, "In several amounts over the past 8 months. Can I get copies?" "Yes." Monica printed a brief account summary and added it to the other documents. "Is that everything?" "That's everything I can see in our system." Claire exhaled, but no relief came. "How do I find out about other banks?" Monica wrote several steps on a sheet of paper that would help Claire review the accounts connected to her identity. If you don't recognize an obligation, don't call a number from a random email. Verify the company first. "Do you think someone stole my information?" Monica slowly capped her pen. "I think you need to see the whole picture." Claire placed the papers in her purse. When she left the bank, her phone showed 5 missed calls from Daniel. Beneath them was a message. "I need your signature by 2. Where are you?" Claire sat in her car. Without starting the engine, she began typing that she had been at the bank. Then she erased it. "At the store. Forgot a few things." His response came almost immediately. "The documents will be on the kitchen counter. Just sign the last page." Claire placed the phone on the passenger seat. Yesterday, that was exactly what she would have done. She would have gone home, set the grocery bags on the counter, signed a document, and started dinner. She might have asked what it was. Daniel would have told her it was a routine formality, and that would have been enough. Instead of going home, Claire drove to the library. She chose a computer in the far corner, where people passing through the aisle couldn't see her screen. She entered her email password incorrectly twice, then had to recover the account using her phone. The information appeared slowly. The company line of credit, the materials card, the loan secured by the house. Another obligation connected to an investment project Claire had never heard of. She wrote the amounts on the back of an old Harris Teeter receipt and added them on the calculator. Claire checked the result. Then she calculated it again. A little over $184,000. A woman at the next computer was working on a resume. 2 teenagers argued quietly beside the printer. A librarian pushed a cart of books between the tables. Nothing around Claire had changed. She sat in front of the screen with her hands pressed against her knees, trying to understand how her name could be worth $184,000 when she didn't even have a bank account of her own. She returned home after 1. A folder was waiting on the kitchen counter with a yellow note attached. "Sign here." Claire didn't open it. She went upstairs to Daniel's office first. The cabinets were closed. One desk drawer that had never been locked before wouldn't open. Several folders were missing from the box containing their tax documents. Claire began searching for her old college work. She checked the guest room closet, the garage shelves, and the plastic bins holding the children's things. She found one of Emma's old scarves, Lucas's baseball glove, and a box of photographs she had been promising to organize for 10 years. The blue portfolio containing her sketches was gone. Claire sat on the garage floor. An old wooden chair with damaged cane webbing stood against the wall. She had restored it during her 2nd year of college. Daniel had suggested throwing it away several times, but Claire always said she would repair it someday. During the early years of their marriage, she had helped stage the houses he renovated. Claire chose paint, found secondhand furniture, and sewed simple curtains. When the first house sold for more than Daniel expected, he brought home a bottle of champagne and said, "I couldn't have done it without you." After hearing those words, Claire worked even harder. She never asked how much value her work had added to the house. She never asked to be paid. She never put her name on the photographs. She believed married people weren't supposed to keep track of who contributed more. Her phone vibrated again. "Did you sign it?" Claire looked toward the kitchen. Then she opened the photos on her phone and found a picture taken the previous fall in Raleigh. She and Emma were standing outside the student center, holding paper cups of coffee. A date appeared beneath the photograph. It was the same date shown on an electronic document Claire had supposedly signed in Charlotte. She enlarged the picture as if the date might change. It didn't. Claire had signed some of the papers without reading them, but she hadn't signed this one. Someone had used her name when she wasn't even in the city. Claire found the number of an attorney whose information she had written down several months earlier for a neighbor. She pressed the call button and held the phone to her ear. When someone answered, Claire closed her eyes for a moment. "My name is Claire Bennett," she said. "I need a consultation. I think my husband has been signing financial documents in my name." Rachel Kim's office was on the second floor of a small brick building between a dentist's office and an insurance agency. Claire arrived 20 minutes early, but remained in her car. The folder of bank documents sat on the passenger seat. On top were the papers Daniel had left for her latest signature. Her phone lit up again. "Did you sign it?" "I froze the card." "Why?" "It's in my name. I know whose name it's in. I'm asking why you froze it in the middle of a workday. I didn't know it existed." Daniel dragged one hand through his hair. "We used it to buy materials for the projects. I was going to pay everything back after the sale. There hasn't been a payment on the line of credit in 3 months. I told you I'm handling it. You said the bookkeeper set up the automatic payment incorrectly." He looked away. "It's more complicated than that. The bank said there wasn't enough money in the account." Daniel looked at her, as if he had only just realized where she had been. "You went to the bank?" "Yes." "Behind my back?" Claire lowered her eyes to the document. The urge to defend herself appeared almost automatically. She wanted to explain why she had gone, to assure him she hadn't meant to cause any damage. She pressed her palms together. "My name is attached to $67,000 in debt. I don't need your permission to ask about it." Daniel pulled out a chair, but didn't sit down. "You don't understand how the business works." "Then explain it to me." "Right now?" "Yes, right now." He walked to the refrigerator and opened it. For several seconds, he stared inside. Then he closed it without taking anything. "We got into several projects at the same time. One buyer's financing was delayed. Another house needed more work than the inspection showed. It's a temporary cash shortage." "Who is we?" "The company. Bennett Renovations or Blue Heron?" Daniel froze. For the first time, Claire saw fear on his face instead of irritation. He turned slowly. "Where did you hear that name?" "It was in the bank records." "You weren't supposed to see internal transfers." "Why?" "Because without the context, they don't explain anything." "Then give me the context." Daniel sat across from her. "Blue Heron is an investment company." "Yours and Vanessa's." He said nothing. "Almost 2 years," Claire continued. "You formed it almost 2 years ago. We wanted to do our own projects, not just renovations for clients." "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you weren't interested in the business. I spent 25 years helping with your business. You picked colors and furniture, Claire. That isn't the same as risking your own money." He said it quietly. That made it hurt more. Claire looked at the table she had bought at a garage sale and refinished herself. Daniel had held his first client meetings around it when he couldn't afford an office. "You weren't only risking your own money." Daniel rubbed both hands over his face. "I was going to pay it back." "What about the condo?" He didn't answer. "I saw Vanessa's message." Daniel lowered his hands. The refrigerator motor came on between them. Its steady mechanical hum filled the kitchen. "This was supposed to happen differently," he said. "What was?" "Everything." Claire waited. He looked at her, then almost immediately looked away. "Vanessa and I are together." Claire heard the words, but for several seconds she couldn't make sense of them. "You work together?" Daniel closed his eyes. That was enough. Claire stood slowly. Her knees struck the edge of the table, and tea spilled across the copy of the document. She grabbed a dish towel and began blotting the pages. "Claire." She kept pressing the towel against the wet paper. "How long?" "A few months." "How many?" "Since March." 8 months. In the spring, Vanessa had sat in their dining room and complimented Claire's new curtains. In June, Daniel had forgotten Claire's birthday. then brought home grocery store flowers the next morning. In August, he had said he was traveling with Vanessa to a 2-day real estate conference. Claire folded the wet towel in half. You brought her into our home. Nothing had happened yet, but the company already existed. Yes, and you were already using my money. It wasn't your money. It was company credit. With my signature. Daniel pushed back from the table. I didn't want you to find out this way. How did you want to find out? He didn't answer. Claire looked at the man she had lived with for 27 years and tried to find the person she knew in his face. She saw exhaustion, gray at his temples, a small cut on one finger, his habit of pressing his thumb against his wedding band when he was nervous. Daniel didn't look like a monster. He looked like a man who had spent a long time explaining to himself why he had the right to lie. I'm going to get some things, he said. You already did. Daniel looked up. The shirts, the suits, your overnight bag. I didn't want to make a scene. So you move your life out a few pieces at a time? He went upstairs. Claire remained in the kitchen. She could call Rachel. She could go to a neighbor's house. She could lock the door and refuse to let Daniel back in. Instead, she followed him. He was packing sweaters into a suitcase. Don't leave tonight, Claire said. Daniel didn't stop. We both need to calm down. We can fix this. Now he stopped. Claire heard her own voice and rushed to continue. You end things with her. We find a counselor. I'll help figure out the debt. If the business is going through a hard time, we'll handle it. This isn't only about the business. I know. No, you don't. Claire stepped closer. I can forgive you. He looked at her with an expression that held more pity than relief. Don't do this. Do what? Don't try to become the wife I can't leave. Claire stepped back. I was a good wife. Yes, you were. His answer hurt more than a denial would have. But you never told anyone what you wanted, Daniel continued. You just did everything for everybody, then got angry when we didn't understand what it cost you. I left school for this family. You decided to leave school. You said we needed someone at home. And you agreed. Claire, I never stopped you from having a life of your own. She couldn't answer, because there was cruelty in those words, and some truth. Daniel carried the suitcase downstairs. He stopped beside the door before leaving. I'll call tomorrow. Claire didn't say she would be waiting, but after the garage door closed, she stood in the kitchen for a long time, listening to the silence. Lucas called around 11. Claire answered immediately. Mom, what's going on? The sound of her son's voice made her knees weaken. She sat on the stairs. Your father left. There was a pause on the other end. He said you froze the accounts. Did you know about Vanessa? What? The condo. That they're together. Mom, I don't know what you're talking about. Claire closed her eyes. You helped him move things. A few boxes of documents. He said it was a new workspace. It wasn't an office. Lucas exhaled heavily. Look, Dad said the company's in trouble and you might make things worse. He used my name to take out credit. He says you signed everything. Claire tightened her grip on the phone. Not everything. I don't know who to believe. After a few seconds, Lucas added more quietly. Dad, warn me you might have some kind of emotional breakdown if you found out. Claire pulled the phone away from her ear. Her husband hadn't only prepared a condo, a company, and a new life. He had prepared the children for his version of who their mother would become when she finally saw the truth. The next morning, Claire put away the wedding china. She washed every plate separately, even though they were already clean. She dried each one with a soft towel and placed it back in the box between fabric dividers. When only one plate remained, her phone rang. Daniel. Claire answered after the first ring. Hi. Did you talk to Lucas? Now how are you? Now did you sleep? Not I'm sorry. He called me. You shouldn't drag the kids into our problems. You already dragged him in. He works for you. That's exactly why I don't want you frightening him. Claire placed the plate in the box. Are you coming home today? There was a brief pause on the other end. I'll stop by for the mail. I can make dinner. Don't. After the call, Claire stood in front of the bathroom mirror for a long time. She studied the pale strands at her temples, the lines around her eyes, and the skin beneath her chin. Then she called the salon she had used for years and asked for the earliest available appointment. The stylist warmed the color and cut several inches from her hair. Claire bought a new lipstick in a shade she normally wouldn't wear. By the time Daniel arrived with mail, she had changed into a clean blouse. He noticed, "You cut your hair. Do you like it?" Daniel put the envelopes in his bag. You didn't need to change anything about yourself. It was supposed to sound kind. But Claire heard something else. The haircut wouldn't change anything. After he left, she wiped off the lipstick with a tissue. 3 days later, Claire began looking for work. There was too much empty space on her resume. She wrote that she had spent 25 years helping manage the family renovation company. Then she deleted the word manage and replaced it with support. Below that, she typed, assisted with selecting colors, furniture, and decor. The word design felt like an exaggeration. The manager of a home decor store near the mall looked over the resume. Have you worked with customers? I answered some of my husband's calls. Can you prepare estimates? Not exactly. I selected materials. Do you know any suppliers? Claire named 4 local fabric vendors and 2 furniture restoration shops. Then she explained the difference between paint finishes most people didn't notice until after the walls dried. The manager set down the resume. We need someone part-time, mostly evenings and weekends. The starting wage isn't going to impress you. That's fine. On her first day, Claire received a green apron and a name tag. She pinned it above her chest and stared at it for several seconds. Claire. Her name appeared in large letters. Nothing beneath it said Daniel's wife or Lucas and Emma's mother. The first few shifts exhausted her more than she expected. Claire spent 7 hours at a time on her feet, carried boxes of candles, and explained return policies to customers. Some people didn't look her in the eye. Others abandoned unwanted items on random shelves and then complained that they couldn't find anything. But sometimes someone brought in a photograph of a room and asked for advice. Then Claire forgot about the ache in her back. She chose a lamp, explained why a small rug made a living room look even smaller, or found an inexpensive fabric that tied old furniture to new pieces. 2 weeks later, one customer returned to show her pictures of the finished room. You were right, the woman said. It finally looks like everything belongs together. Claire carried those words with her for the rest of the shift. One evening, while reviewing old company invoices for Rachel, she saw the name, Torres Staging Rentals. Below it was the owner's name, Maya Torres. Claire hadn't spoken to Maya in more than 20 years. They had gone to school together. Maya always wore large silver earrings, argued with their instructors, and could rework a bad sketch in 10 minutes until the entire design began to make sense. Claire found the company number and called before she could change her mind. Torres Staging. A woman answered. Maya. Yes. This is Claire. Claire Bennett. I used to be Claire Whitmore. The other end went quiet. My God, Maya finally said, you're alive. They met the next morning at Maya's warehouse in Matthews. Maya still wore large earrings, but now her dark hair held more gray than black. Behind her were rows of sofas, tables, lamps, and plastic bins filled with decor. A stack of unpaid bills lay on the desk. Maya made no attempt to hide them. I don't have a permanent job for you, she said after Claire briefly explained the separation, and I can't lend you any money. I didn't ask for money. Good, because I don't have any. Claire lowered her coffee cup. Were you always this direct? No, I used to be worse. Maya opened photograph of an empty house. I have one project, a ranch house in Matthews. The agent isn't paying much because the owner already moved and doesn't want to put more money into it. I can give you $450. For the whole house? Living room, dining room, and primary bedroom. 1 day to install, 1 day to remove everything. No more. Claire accepted. The house smelled like closed windows and old carpet. The living room had a low ceiling, a dark brick wall, and only one electrical outlet near the doorway. Claire stood in the middle of the room. At first, she saw the problems. Then she saw the possibilities. She turned the sofa toward the window, moved a narrow console table against the brick wall, and positioned a mirror where it could catch the daylight. She removed half the decor Maya had brought. She moved the old wooden table closer to the kitchen, opening a clear path to the back door. Claire worked until 8 that evening. She returned early the next morning to replace the curtains and repaint a scratch bench. Painting wasn't part of the agreement, Maya said. It only took an hour. An hour still is a price. It's fine. Maya looked at her, but didn't argue. When the real estate agent arrived, she moved slowly through the rooms. She returned to the living room twice before asking, "Who did this?" Claire automatically looked at Maya. Maya didn't answer for her. "I did," Claire said. The agent handed her a business card. "Do you have a card of your own?" "Not yet." "Get some. I'll have another empty house next month." That evening, Maya wrote her a check. The payee line read, Claire Bennett. Claire ran one finger over her name. It wasn't family money. It wasn't a gift from Daniel. It wasn't gratitude for dinner or praise for making a home feel comfortable. For the first time in 25 years, someone had paid Claire for something she knew how to do. Claire deposited her first check into her new account. The credit union employee ran it through the scanner and asked if she wanted the receipt emailed to her. "Paper, please." Claire folded the receipt in half and slipped it into the small notebook where she kept her passwords. The account now held $750. It wasn't enough to save the house or pay off the business line of credit. It wouldn't even cover 1 month's payment on some of the debt, but the money belonged to her. 2 months after the first certified letter arrived, Claire was back in Rachel's office. This time, 2 stacks of documents sat on the desk. "Let's start with what we can challenge," Rachel said. She showed Claire electronic signatures, dates, and account access records. Some documents had been created while Claire was in another city. On one file, her signature appeared exactly the same on 3 different pages, down to the smallest stroke at the end. "It looks like someone used a saved image," Rachel said, "but we still need confirmation. So I won't have to pay that part." I said we can challenge it. I didn't say the problem has disappeared. Then Rachel touched the second stack. Claire immediately recognized her signature in blue ink. "And these?" "The credit guarantee and materials card. These are more complicated. Daniel used the money without telling me, but you gave him access. I didn't know he was spending it on Vanessa. That matters to the overall financial picture, but it doesn't erase your signature." Claire looked at the numbers. "How much?" Rachel told her. $76,000. Claire slowly leaned back in her chair. "I make a little over $15 an hour." "I know. My first design job paid $450. "I know. Then how am I supposed to pay this?" "Not with one check, and not this month." Rachel opened the appraisal of the family home. "But keeping the house probably won't be possible." Claire shook her head immediately. "No, Claire, this is my children's home. Your children are 24 and 21. Lucas grew up in the room over the garage. Their height marks are still inside the pantry door. I'm not saying the house means nothing. Then why are you talking about it like it's just a number?" Rachel closed the folder. "Because the creditors already are." That evening, Claire met the children at a diner in Pineville. They used to come there after Lucas's soccer games. Daniel ordered a double cheeseburger. Emma stole fries from her father's plate, and Claire always said she wasn't hungry even though she finished whatever the children left behind. This time, only the 3 of them sat in the booth. Lucas had come directly from work. A streak of pale dust marked his shirt. Emma had driven from Raleigh for the weekend and held her glass of iced tea between both hands. "I need to tell you something important," Claire began. "Dad already said you want to sell the house," Lucas replied. Claire looked at him. "I haven't decided anything yet." "But you're going to?" "I may have to." Lucas leaned back against the booth. "That doesn't make sense. Dad's willing to pay his share. Your father doesn't even have enough money to make the company's payments. Because you froze the accounts in the middle of a project." Emma set down her glass. "She froze credit that was in her name." "You don't work there, Emma. You don't know what's happening. Did you know about Vanessa?" Lucas's jaw tightened. "No, but you're still repeating everything Dad says." "Because I see the numbers. We have subcontractors, employees, unfinished houses. This isn't only about Mom's feelings. Claire felt a familiar resentment rising inside her. My feelings? That isn't what I meant. He used my name. He lied to me. He was planning to leave me with the debt. Dad says you signed the documents. Some of them. Then why are you acting like you knew nothing? Emma turned toward her brother. Are you serious right now? I'm not saying Dad was right, but Mom spent years refusing to know anything about the finances. Now everyone's supposed to act like she isn't responsible for any of it. Claire waited for Emma to argue. Her daughter remained silent. The server brought the menus, but no one opened one. I left school so you could have a stable home, Claire said. I helped your father raise both of you and did everything I could so you never had to worry. Lucas lowered his eyes. Emma slowly pushed her glass away. Mom, don't. Don't what? Start listing everything you gave up for us again. I'm just explaining. You always explain it when we say something you don't want to hear. Claire stared at her daughter. You think this is my fault? No. What Dad did is his fault. But Emma ran one finger through the wet ring left by her glass. But you want us to say that none of your choices were ever yours. Claire felt heat rise into her face. You have no idea how much I've done for you. That's exactly what I mean. Emma kept her voice low. I'm grateful to you. I really am. But sometimes it feels like we're supposed to repay you for the life you gave up. I gave it up for this family. We never asked you to disappear. Claire turned toward the window. In the parking lot, a man was buckling a little girl into a car seat. The girl held a paper takeout bag and talked without stopping. The man listened, leaning into the open door. Claire remembered hundreds of evenings spent waiting in the car after practices, rehearsals, and meetings. She had never thought she was disappearing. She had thought she was becoming necessary. Lucas was the first to stand. I have to get back to the job site. It's almost 9, Claire said. We have an inspection tomorrow. He left several bills beside his glass. I don't want you to lose the house, Mom. But I don't want to lose my job because you and Dad can't work this out. Claire didn't answer. After he left, Emma offered to stay with her mother that night. You don't have to, Claire said. Are you sure? Claire wanted to say no. She wanted to ask her daughter to come home, sleep in the guest room, and be there when she woke up. But Emma had a life of her own in Raleigh. Yes, go stay with your friend, like you planned. The appraiser came to the house the next morning. He handed Claire several pages of authorization forms. In the past, she would have flipped straight to the end. This time, she read every paragraph. The appraiser waited patiently. Claire signed and walked him through the house. He photographed the kitchen, dining room, living room, and bedrooms. In every room, he paused over details Claire had designed herself. In the living room, he studied the bookshelves built on both sides of the fireplace. Who designed these? Claire nearly answered automatically. We did. She looked at the shelves she had first drawn on the back of a grocery list 20 years earlier. I did, she said. The appraiser made a note on his tablet. You have a good eye for space. Claire said nothing. But this time, she didn't tell him it had only been a little help for her husband. 2 days after the appraisal, Maya called Claire during her lunch break. Claire was sitting in the store's break room with a plastic container of salad on her lap. The work schedule hung on the wall across from her, beside a handwritten note asking employees not to leave dirty cups in the sink. That agent from Matthews wants to recommend you to another client, Maya said. She needs photos of your previous work. I have pictures of the house we staged. One house isn't enough. Claire held the phone against her shoulder and closed the container. I worked on dozens of Daniel's projects, then build a portfolio. I don't have permission to use the company's photographs. Did you take the photographs? Most of them. And the sketches? I made those too. Then start with what actually belongs to you. After her shift, Claire went into the home office. Daniel had changed the password to their shared cloud storage. A short access denied message appeared on the screen. Claire called him. He didn't answer immediately. What happened? He asked. I need photographs of the old projects. Why? I'm putting together a portfolio. There was a pause on the other end. A portfolio of what? Claire looked at the screen. My design work. Claire, those photographs belong to Bennett Renovations. I designed the interiors. You helped. I made the sketches, selected the materials, and staged the houses for sale. Are we really going to argue over every pillow you put on a sofa? Claire felt a familiar urge to back down. I only need the projects I worked on. Talk to your attorney. I don't want you using company materials until we sort out everything else. He ended the call. Claire held the phone to her ear for several more seconds. Then she opened the cabinet beneath the bookshelves. Years earlier, she had been responsible for backing up Daniel's presentations. After one laptop crashed, he bought 2 external drives and asked Claire to copy all the company files every Friday. One drive stayed at the office. She kept the other at home. Claire found inside a box of old chargers, cables, and memory cards. A white label was still attached to the black casing. In her handwriting, it read, Home Backup. She connected the drive to the computer. Familiar folders appeared first. Invoices, estimates, property photographs, and client presentations. Claire recognized the houses by their street names. The kitchen with dark green cabinets Daniel had called too bold, until the first buyer made an offer on the day of the showing. The small house in Pineville, where Claire removed the upper cabinets beside the window to make the kitchen feel wider. The brick house, where she found an old dining table for $120 and restored it in the garage. Every folder contained before and after photographs. Her name appeared nowhere. Claire began copying the images she had taken herself. Near the bottom of the list, she saw a folder labeled Blue Heron Design. It had last been modified 8 months earlier. Claire opened it. Inside were presentations, color palettes, and scanned sketches. She recognized the first palette immediately. She had created it 6 years earlier for a house with a narrow living room. Even her names for the colors remained: warm linen, clay, and quiet green. In the lower corner, it read, Design Direction, Vanessa Cole. Claire opened the next file. A living room photograph, her furniture arrangement, her materials list, Vanessa's name. Then she saw a scanned page from her college portfolio. Claire enlarged the image. A small coffee stain remained in the upper right corner. It had appeared during her second year, when Maya accidentally knocked over a cup while they were preparing a presentation late at night. It was a sketch of a small hotel lobby, with a round table in the center, tall light fixtures, and a quiet seating area beside the window. The bottom had once been signed, Claire Whitmore. In the scanned image, the lower edge had been cropped out. Claire pushed herself away from the computer. Her blue portfolio hadn't been lost during a move. It wasn't sitting in some forgotten box. Someone had taken it. Her call to Lucas went unanswered. A few minutes later, he texted that he was at a job site. Claire sent him a photograph of the sketch. Do you know how this ended up in Blue Heron's files? Lucas didn't answer for a long time. Then he called. Mom, I don't know exactly what you found. It's my college work. Dad brought an old blue portfolio to the office. Claire closed her eyes. When? Maybe a year ago. Vanessa was looking for ideas for a presentation. Did he tell you whose portfolio it was? I didn't ask. Did you see my name on the sketches? Maybe. I don't remember. Lucas was speaking quickly, and Claire realized he remembered more than he wanted to admit. They used my work. I wasn't involved in the design side. I'm not blaming you. It sounds like you are. Claire tightened her grip on the phone. In the past, she would have rushed to reassure him. She would have said none of it was his fault and changed the subject, so her son wouldn't feel uncomfortable. I need the truth, Lucas. The other end went quiet. Dad said you weren't using any of it anyway. Something tightened inside Claire. Not because they thought her work was bad. The opposite. It had been good enough to make money from. Just not important enough to keep her name on it. The following morning, Claire brought her laptop to Maya's warehouse. Maya reviewed the files in silence. She paused over the kitchen with the green cabinets, then the photographs of the brick house. You did all of this? Claire opened her mouth. She almost said, I only helped. Yes, she answered. Maya looked at her over the top of her glasses. Then why are you acting like you're starting from nothing? Claire didn't know how to answer. She created a new folder on the computer. At first, she named it Supporting Materials. She stared at the words for several seconds, then deleted them. The new name was simple: Claire Bennett Portfolio. Claire added only the photographs, sketches, and projects whose authorship she'd verify. She didn't know whether they would be enough to build a new career, but now she knew something else. Her talent had never been worthless. She had simply been the one left unseen. Over the next several months, Claire learned to live by two schedules. During the day, she worked at the home decor store. In the evenings, she watched online courses about home staging, prepared estimates, and taught herself the software Daniel's bookkeeper had once used. On weekends, she worked with Maya. The agent for Matthews gave Claire a second house, then a third. They were small jobs: staging a living room, making a bedroom feel warmer, or preparing a kitchen for listing photographs. Claire still charged less than other stagers. Whenever clients asked about her rates, she named a price and immediately added, "But we can work something out." Maya winced every time. "You discount yourself before they even have a chance to complain. I'm just starting out." "No, you're finally charging for something you've been doing for years." Claire heard her, but she still couldn't fully believe it. In March, a for sale sign went up in front of the family home. Claire watched from the window as the real estate agent straightened on the lawn. 25 years earlier, Daniel had planted a young maple tree in that same spot. Its branches now shaded half the roof. Before the listing photographs were taken, Claire staged her own house as if it belonged to someone else. She removed the family pictures. She packed away the box of cards the children had made in elementary school. She took down the portrait from their 20th anniversary. In the bedroom, she left only 2 neutral pillows and a pale coverlet. She replaced the beach photograph with a small ceramic vase. The rooms looked larger and unfamiliar. On the day of the first showing, Claire went to work early. When she returned, the agent's business card was lying on the kitchen counter beside a short note. 3 families, 2 very interested. The house showed beautifully. Claire sat at the empty table. The words were supposed to make her happy. She knew how to prepare a house for sale. This was what she wanted. But for the first time, she understood that the home she had spent years treating as proof of a strong marriage could be turned into a product in a single morning. They received an offer 11 days later. After the mortgage, the home equity debt, and the selling expenses were paid, far less remained than Claire had imagined. Her portion was enough for a rental deposit, legal fees, a partial payment toward the debt she had accepted, and a small emergency reserve. Daniel signed the closing documents separately. Claire saw him only near the office exit while he was talking on the phone. He had lost weight. He was wearing the gray suit that had once disappeared from their closet. Daniel ended the call. "Did you already sign?" "Yes." "Did you read everything?" Claire looked at him. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was an attempt at an apology from a man who didn't know the right words. "Every page." Daniel nodded. "Good." They stood in the hallway for several seconds, neither knowing how to say goodbye. "I never wanted you to lose the house," he said. "Then you shouldn't have borrowed against it." Daniel lowered his eyes. Claire walked past him toward the elevator. She spent her last night in the house on a mattress in the empty bedroom. Lucas didn't come to help her move. He texted that an emergency had come up at a job site. Claire didn't know whether it was true. Emma arrived from Raleigh the next morning with coffee and a box of donuts. They taped boxes and argued about what Claire should keep and what she should donate. When Emma noticed the children's height marks inside the pantry door, she ran one finger over the lowest line. "Is this mine?" "You were 4. We should cut out this part of the door." "No." Emma looked at her mother in surprise. Claire took a photograph of the marks. "They can stay here." Before leaving, she walked through rooms one last time. She didn't touch the walls or try to memorize every detail. She checked the windows, turned off the lights, and left the keys on the kitchen counter. The old college chair with its damaged cane seat was already in the moving truck. Her new apartment was half the size of the family home. It had 1 bedroom, a narrow kitchen, and a small balcony overlooking the parking lot and the tops of several trees. 1 bathroom light didn't work, and the cabinet door beneath the sink refused to stay closed. Claire noticed every flaw within 5 minutes. Then she opened the balcony door and heard birds in the trees. "It's cozy," Emma said. Claire knew her daughter was trying to make her feel better. "It will be when I'm finished." "Do you want me to stay?" In the past, Claire would have said yes. Then she would have spent the evening assuring Emma that everything was fine and cooking dinner, so her daughter wouldn't worry. "No, you were planning to meet your friends. I can cancel." "You don't need to." Emma hugged her beside the door. After she left, Claire didn't unpack the kitchen boxes. She ordered soup and a sandwich from a small cafe nearby and ate while sitting on the floor. No one asked what was for dinner. The following week, Claire registered her company, Claire Bennett Home Staging. She built a simple website and ordered 50 business cards. When the box arrived, Claire checked the wording several times, afraid she would find a mistake. Her name appeared on the card. Beneath it, home staging and interior styling. The first house staged under her company's name received an offer in 6 days. The agent sent Claire a photograph of the under contract sign and added, "The owners are thrilled. I gave your number to Lauren Price. She has a large house and almost no time." Lauren called that same evening. Her husband had been transferred to Atlanta. The family had already rented a home there, and their Charlotte house needed to be listed by the end of the month. "We need the living room, dining room, office, primary bedroom, and possibly both children's rooms," Lauren said. "Our budget is limited, but if everything goes well, I'll write you an amazing review." Claire named her price. The other end went quiet. She immediately added, "Of course, we can adjust it depending on the scope." "Perfect," Lauren replied. "I sometimes change my mind once the work starts. I hope that won't be a problem." Claire looked at the new business cards spread across her table. "No, I'm flexible." When the call ended, Claire smiled. It was the largest job she had ever received on her own. She didn't yet understand that she had accepted it the same way she once signed Daniel's documents. Too quickly, and out of fear of losing someone else's approval. Lauren Price's house was larger than it had looked in the photographs. It had 2 stories, 5 bedrooms, a separate office, and a living room with a vaulted ceiling. The garage was filled with boxes the family hadn't yet moved to Atlanta. Bills, children's drawings, and school papers covered the kitchen island. Lauren walked from room to room with her phone in her hand. "At first, I thought we could leave the walls gray," she said. "But my husband thinks they look dirty. What do you think? A warmer color would make the room feel brighter. Is that included in your price?" Claire looked at the estimate. It covered furniture, decor delivery, and staging 5 rooms. She hadn't included painting. "We'll figure something out." Lauren smiled with relief. "I knew you'd be easy to work with." The first changes came that same day. The office needed to become a guest bedroom. Lauren wanted new curtains in one of the children's rooms. She didn't like the sofa Claire had selected from Maya's warehouse. "It feels a little dated. It will look better in the photographs than it does right now. Could we bring in another one? Something lighter?" Claire knew a second delivery would cost money. Of course. That evening, she emailed Lauren an updated list of tasks, but didn't include the new prices. Claire was afraid the higher amount would scare her client away. The next morning, Maya asked, "Did she sign off on the changes?" "I sent her the list." "With the prices?" "Not yet." Maya stopped counting pillows. "Then you didn't send her a change order. You sent her a list of free promises. I'll add everything to the final invoice. And she'll say she never agreed to pay for it." Lauren's reasonable. She's just stressed about the move. That part was true. Lauren's husband was already working in Atlanta. Their older son refused to transfer to a new school, and their younger daughter cried whenever someone packed her belongings into a box. The family was paying for 2 houses. Claire didn't see a demanding client. She saw a woman who needed help. Over the next 2 weeks, Claire worked 12-hour days. She went to Lauren's house in the mornings. In the evenings, she worked her shift at the store. After closing, she returned to her apartment and ordered materials from her phone. She paid for paint, curtains, bedding, and several light fixtures with her own credit card because Lauren had promised to reimburse her after the project was finished. Claire was late to the store twice. After the 3rd shift she asked to reschedule, the manager called her into the back office. I know you're building your own business, she said. But while you work here, I need to be able to count on you. It won't happen again. Claire said it confidently, even though Lauren asked her the following morning to stage the entryway too. It's only a console table and a mirror, Lauren explained. It's not a whole room. Of course, Claire said. I'll see what I can do. She didn't say it would cost extra. 3 days before the photo shoot, one of the hired contractors scratched a long wooden table rented from Maya. Claire noticed the damage as the man was packing his tools. That was already there, he said. No, it wasn't. I was working by the wall. I never touched the table. Claire could have called the crew supervisor and demanded reimbursement. She could have withheld payment. But the contractor mentioned that he was late picking up his daughter from school, and Claire said, "All right, go." She moved a vase to hide the scratch. What happened to the table? Maya asked when she arrived with the last shipment of furniture. Just a small scratch. Maya ran one finger along the wood. That isn't a small scratch. I'll pay to have it repaired. Who damaged it? The contractor. Then why are you paying? Claire adjusted the vase. I didn't have time to argue. No, you decided your time, your money, and my furniture were worth less than someone else's discomfort. Claire said nothing. On the day of the photo shoot, the house looked flawless. The warm, pale walls made the living room feel larger. Morning light fell across the bed in the guest room. The new curtains hid the neighbor's fence, and a light-colored sofa softened the dark flooring. Lauren walked through the rooms, smiling. I barely recognized my own house. The real estate agent toured the first floor with a photographer. This is some of the best staging I've seen in a long time, she told Claire. Make sure you send me your contact information. Claire felt a wave of relief. She thought all the extra work had been worth it. That evening, she sent Lauren the final invoice. The reply arrived the next morning. This isn't the amount we agreed on. Claire called her. The invoice includes a painting, the second delivery, the curtains, the light fixtures, and the additional rooms. But you agreed to do those things. Yes, but they weren't included in the original price. You never told me every request would increase the cost. I sent you a list of the changes. Without prices. Claire was silent. Lauren exhaled. Listen, I'm not trying to cheat you, but you said you'd be flexible. If I'd known the final cost, I would have turned down half the work. There was truth in her words. That made the situation worse. I already paid for materials, Claire said. I'll reimburse anything with a receipt, but I'm not paying for hours and services I never proved. After the call, $8,400 remained unpaid. Claire sat at the small table in her apartment and stared at the number. Her credit card carried the cost of the materials. Rent was due in 5 days. Maya was waiting to be paid for furniture and the damaged table. The store had given Claire a final warning over her schedule changes. She opened the box of business cards. She took one out. Claire Bennett home staging. Claire turned the card face down. The next morning, she drove to Maya's warehouse. I can't pay everything at once, Claire said, but I'll pay it back in installments. Maya stood beside the damaged table. All right. You're not going to let me use any more furniture, are you? Not until this balance is settled. So that's it. That's a boundary, Claire. Not the end of our friendship. Claire folded her arms. I was trying to do a good job. You did a good job. Then why did everything fall apart? Maya looked at her. Because you were trying to be the easiest person in the room again. You just called it business this time. Claire turned away. She wanted to blame Lauren, the contractor, Daniel, Maya, and herself all at once. Her phone rang inside her purse. Daniel's name appeared on the screen. Claire didn't answer. The call ended, and a voicemail arrived several seconds later. She played it once she was in her car. Claire, it's me. Lucas said you're having trouble with work. Things aren't exactly going well for us either. I think we should talk. Maybe we can still fix this. Claire listened to the message twice. Then she placed the phone on the passenger seat. For the first time in months, Daniel's offer didn't sound humiliating. Claire called Daniel back the next morning. They agreed to meet at a restaurant near South Park, where they used to stop after Christmas shopping. It was busy enough to discourage a scene, but quiet enough for a conversation. Claire arrived first. She chose a table near the window and placed her phone beside the menu. She had barely slept. Several times during the night, she opened her banking app, counted her money, and tried to decide which bill she could postpone. An email from Rachel had arrived that morning with new documents attached. Claire hadn't opened them. She was afraid of finding another amount she couldn't afford to pay. Daniel arrived 10 minutes late. He wore jeans and a shirt with the top button undone. Claire couldn't remember the last time she had seen him without a business jacket in the middle of a workday. He sat across from her. "Thank you for coming. Did Lucas tell you about my project?" "He's worried." "Did he tell you what happened?" "He said a client didn't pay you and you owe Maya money." Claire picked up her glass of water. "He shouldn't have told you that. He's our son. That doesn't mean he should report everything about my life to you." Daniel nodded. "All right, you're right." Claire hadn't expected him to agree so quickly. A server approached their table. Daniel ordered coffee. Claire said she didn't want anything. After the server left, he ran one finger along the edge of the menu. "Blue Heron has nearly stopped operating." "What does that mean?" "The buyer pulled out the last deal. We can't finish 2 other projects without more money. The contractors are waiting to be paid." "What about Bennett Renovations?" "It's still running. But if Blue Heron pulls it down too, it won't last long." Daniel spoke calmly, but Claire could see the exhaustion in his face. In the past, he had brought problems like these to her late at night. She poured him a bourbon, listened, and told him he always found a way through. This time, Claire said nothing. "Vanessa and I aren't living together anymore," he said. "Because of the money?" "Not only that." "Did she leave when everything stopped working?" Daniel looked up. "It isn't that simple. You said the same thing about the debt." He accepted the blow without responding. The server brought his coffee. Daniel added cream, though he used to drink it black. "I thought things would be different with her," he said. "She saw me as someone who could still build something big. And what did I see? A man who always needed something fixed." Claire wanted to argue. Then she remembered all the evenings Daniel had tried to tell her about a risky project, and she had only asked what time he would be home. "Maybe," she said. He studied her more closely. "The condo is on the market. If we sell it and pay off some of the obligations, we may still be able to save the company." "What do you want from me?" Daniel placed his hands on the table. "I want us to try again." Claire waited. "I'm not suggesting we pretend nothing happened," he said. "I know we can't, but we could rent a house. I'd put you on the company payroll. You'd handle design officially. We'd work through the debt together." It was exactly the offer Claire had wanted several months earlier. Recognition for her work, a salary, shared responsibility, her husband coming back. She imagined a house with a normal kitchen instead of the narrow counter in her apartment. 2 cups beside the coffee maker. Daniel asked him where he had left his keys. Bills she no longer had to open by herself. She wouldn't have to call clients and ask them to pay. She wouldn't have to stare at a box of business cards and wonder whether to close the company. "What about Vanessa?" Claire asked. "It's over. If the last house had sold, would you be sitting here now?" Daniel looked through the window. A woman was loading groceries into the trunk of her car. "I don't know." It was the most honest answer he had given her in a long time. "I need to think," Claire said. "Of course." He reached across the table, but stopped before touching her. "We were a family for almost 30 years. That has to mean something." Claire returned to her apartment that afternoon. She set her purse on the floor and opened the box containing her work materials. She placed the fabric samples, measuring tape, and business cards inside. On her computer, she drafted an email. "Claire Bennett Home Staging is temporarily unable to accept new clients." The cursor blinked at the end of the sentence. Claire didn't press send. Instead, she opened Rachel's email from that morning. The attachments contained Blue Heron documents obtained during the financial review, a preliminary contract for the condo, a spreadsheet of projected expenses, a draft showing how Daniel and Claire's property would be divided. The document had been created 6 weeks before the courier delivered the certified letter. Beside Daniel's name were interest in Bennett Renovations, interest in Blue Heron, Downtown Charlotte condo. Beside Claire's name. Family home. Primary mortgage. Ongoing expenses. Home equity line of credit. Claire read the list again. Daniel hadn't planned to leave her without a roof over her head. He had planned to leave her the house, knowing she couldn't afford to keep it. Below the document was an exchange between Daniel and Vanessa. Vanessa had asked whether Claire would agree to the arrangement. Daniel replied, "She won't give up the house. It matters more to her than money. If we tell her it's for the kids, she'll agree." Claire felt the cold reach her hands. He knew her. He knew which words to use. He knew she would choose the memories, the walls, and the children's height marks on the pantry door. Even if they came with the debt. Her phone rang that evening. "Have you thought about it?" Daniel asked. "Yes. Can I come over?" Claire agreed. He arrived 30 minutes later, carrying a paper bag from a restaurant where they used to order dinner. Daniel had brought her favorite salad and a lemon dessert. For a moment, Claire saw their old life. She placed 2 plates on the small table. Daniel looked around the apartment. "Things shouldn't have to be this hard for you," he said. "Then who should they be hard for?" "That isn't what I meant." Claire placed a printed spreadsheet in front of him. Daniel saw it and went still. That was only a draft. It was created 6 weeks before you left. We were considering different options. You planned to leave me the house and the debt. I planned to pay off the credit line after project sold. But the project didn't sell. I couldn't have predicted that. That's why you had no right to risk my name. Daniel pushed the paper away. "I made a mistake." "No, a mistake is one wrong signature or one bad project. You spent months planning a life where I would be the last person to know. What do you want me to say?" In the past, Claire would have said she wanted an apology. She would have asked him to admit she had been a good wife. She would have wanted to know whether he had ever loved her. Now she simply said, "Nothing." Daniel looked at the closed box of work materials. "Do you really want to continue this business after you've already lost money?" "I don't know. We could do it together. But someone would need to control the finances. You were always happier when I handled everything." Claire looked at him. She finally understood that Daniel wasn't offering to bring her back. He wanted the woman who made dinner, signed the last page, and mistook his control for care. "I wasn't happier," Claire said. "I was quieter." Daniel pressed his lips together. "So that's a no?" Claire felt the fear. Tomorrow, she would still have to think about rent, debt, Maya, and the failed project. Refusing Daniel wouldn't make anything easier. "Yes," she said. "It's a no." Daniel waited for an explanation. Claire didn't give him one. He took his jacket and left. After the door closed, Claire opened the box of work materials. She took out her business cards and placed them back on the table. Then she pulled the old college chair closer and began carefully removing the damaged cane webbing. She still didn't know how to repair her business, but for the first time, she didn't return to her old life simply because the new one had become difficult. The next morning, Claire placed the old chair beside the balcony doors. She removed the remaining damaged cane, cleaned the grooves, and wrote down the measurements for the replacement material. In the past, Claire would have started a job like this without a plan, trusting that she would figure out along the way. This time, she wrote down every step. Then she sat at her computer and opened her correspondence with Lauren. Claire created a document with 3 sections: original agreement, additional requests, verified expenses. She attached receipts, message dates, and photographs of the completed work. She separately marked the hours for which she had no written approval. Then she called Lauren. "I sent you a complete breakdown," Claire said. "I'd like to meet and settle this." "I already explained my position." "Yes, and you're partly right." Lauren went quiet. "I should have told you the price before beginning each additional task," Claire continued. "I didn't. That was my mistake." "Then you understand why I can't pay the full invoice." "I do, but the materials, the second delivery, and the work you approved in your messages don't become free because I made a mistake." They met at the house the following day. A for sale sign was already standing in the yard. Lauren looked exhausted. Dark circles sat beneath her eyes, and her phone kept lighting up with messages from her husband and real estate agent. Claire arranged the documents on the kitchen island. She didn't try to make Lauren feel guilty. She didn't list the nights she had worked or explain that she could lose her business. She only showed the work, the expenses, and their messages. Lauren reviewed the pages in silence. "I really thought most of this was included in your price," she said. "I know. You kept saying everything was fine. I shouldn't have." "Why did you?" Claire looked at the bright living room she had created. "I was afraid you'd find someone else." Lauren slowly nodded. "I wouldn't have. We didn't have time." There was no warmth in her voice, but the hostility had disappeared. They agreed on a final amount. It was less than Claire had requested, but enough to reimburse the materials, cover most of the work, and settle what she owed Maya. Claire signed the short agreement only after Lauren had read it. "You really do have a good eye for space," Lauren said before leaving. "But people need to know what your yes costs." "They will now." The first payment Claire made was to Maya. In the memo, she wrote, "Furniture rental and table repair. Paid in full." Maya called several minutes later. "Got it." "Good. Did you leave anything for yourself?" "I paid the rent. Paid off the card I used for materials. There's a little left." "Then good." Claire waited for Maya to say she could use the furniture again. She didn't. "I have a new contract," Claire said, "and a form for approving additional work. Send them to me. You want to review them? I want to make sure they don't include the phrase, 'We'll figure something out.'" Claire laughed for the first time in weeks. That evening, she rewrote all her business documents. A 50% deposit, a specific list of rooms, a separate delivery fee, written approval for every change. No materials purchased with Claire's personal money without an advance payment from the client. She read the terms several times. They felt harsh. Then she remembered that putting a price on her work wouldn't make her any less kind. Around 9 that evening, someone knocked on the door. Lucas stood in the hallway. An old laptop bag rested beside his feet. "Can I come in?" Claire stepped aside. Lucas looked around the apartment. His eyes paused on boxes of fabric, the work folders, and the chair without a seat. "You're repairing that yourself?" "I repaired it once before." He nodded but didn't sit down. "What happened?" Claire asked. Lucas placed the bag on the table and removed an old company laptop. "Dad told me to clear the equipment out of the Blue Heron office. They aren't renewing the lease. And I found an archive." He turned on the computer. There are loan documents, old emails, login records. Claire didn't touch the laptop. "Does your father know you brought this to me?" "No. He'll find out." "I know." Lucas sat on the edge of the chair. "I didn't know he was signing anything in your name." "I believe you. But I saw Vanessa scanning your blue portfolio. I didn't say anything." Claire waited. "I thought Dad had asked you," he continued. "Then I decided it wasn't my business." "You work for him." "That's not an excuse." Claire could have told him none of it was his fault. She could have taken the entire burden away from him, as she had when he was a child and broke a window or forgot a school project. But he wasn't a child anymore. "No," she said, "it isn't." Lucas lowered his head. "Are you angry with me?" "Yes." He looked up. Claire sat across from him. "And I still love you. Both things can be true." Lucas nodded several times. He opened a folder containing documents. One file held the electronic guarantee for the loan Claire was disputing. Beside it was a copy of her real signature taken from a different agreement. The images matched down to the final line. The activity record showed that the file had been created on Daniel's office computer while Claire was in Raleigh. "Dad might not have known," Lucas said. "Vanessa could have done it. Maybe." Claire didn't want to condemn Daniel without evidence, simply because doing so had become easier. "There are emails between them, too," Lucas added. "I read all of them. Why did you bring this to me?" He was silent for a long time. "Because Dad told me to delete the archive." Claire looked at her son. "Did he say why?" "He said it contained old client information and couldn't be left on the equipment." "Did you believe him?" "At first." Lucas closed the laptop. "I don't know if I can go back to work after this." "You don't have to decide tonight. What would you do?" In the past, Claire would have given him an answer. She would have told him which choice would protect the family, his job, or his relationship with his father. That's your decision, she said. I'm not going to tell you which choice makes you a good son. Lucas rubbed his palms over his knees. Are you going to use this to destroy Dad? I'm going to use it so I don't have to repay money I never borrowed. What about the rest? Claire looked at the closed laptop. I haven't decided yet. The next morning, she brought the computer to Rachel. The attorney called several hours later. This may be enough to remove your responsibility for the disputed loan. Claire sat on the edge of her bed. And the emails? Rachel paused. They prove much more than the unauthorized use of your signature. What do they prove? That Daniel and Vanessa knew you didn't understand the full extent of the debt, and they were counting on it. Claire closed her eyes. We need to meet, Rachel continued. After that, you'll have to decide how far you're willing to go. Rachel printed only part of the email exchange. She left the rest on the computer. Some of these messages are necessary for the financial case, she said. Others reveal what they thought of you, but they don't change the numbers. Claire picked up the first page. The exchange had begun almost 2 years before the separation. Daniel and Vanessa discussed Claire's credit history, available limits, and the documents that could be placed in her name. At first, the messages were cautious. Will she agree to guarantee it? If I tell her it's temporary. Later, the tone changed. Claire doesn't read business documents. I'll show her the last page. In another message, Vanessa asked whether Claire might start asking questions about the large transfers. Daniel replied, she doesn't check the accounts. She cares more about everything being fine at home. Claire turned the page. They were discussing her design work. I took 2 more concepts from the blue portfolio. Take them. She hasn't used them in 20 years. Then came a message from Vanessa. Your homemaker has good taste. Daniel had responded with a laughing emoji. Claire set down the pages. He never called me a homemaker, she said. Rachel said nothing. Not to my face. Claire stood and walked to the window. In the parking lot, a man in work clothes spoke on the phone while holding a paper folder against his chest. A woman pushed a stroller past him. An ordinary morning continued while Claire read how her husband had turned her trust into a financial resource. What can I do with these messages? She asked. We'll give some of them to the creditors and use them during the final settlement. And the rest? Rachel turned the computer toward her. The archive contains contact information for clients, business partners, and real estate agents. You can tell them what happened. You can also contact the people Vanessa works with. Will she lose her job? Possibly. And Daniel, his business is already struggling. If his main clients see all of this, he may not be able to save it. Claire returned to the desk. They deserve that. Maybe you're answering that way again, because the question isn't only what they deserve. Rachel gathered the printed pages. It's what you need this to do for you. That evening, Claire composed a new email. She entered the addresses of several real estate agents, former Bennett Renovations clients, and people who had worked with Vanessa. The subject line read, Important information about Daniel Bennett and Vanessa Cole. Claire attached the emails. She didn't need to explain anything. The messages spoke for themselves. She imagined Daniel waking up the next morning to dozens of missed calls. She imagined Vanessa trying to defend herself to the people who had spent years seeing her as a confident professional. For the first time, Claire could make them feel what it was like to lose control of their own lives. The cursor hovered over the send button. Claire didn't click it. She left the email open and walked onto the balcony. The restored chair now had a newly woven seat. The cane was lighter than the old wood, but it supported her weight. Claire sat down. She hadn't forgiven Daniel. She hadn't stopped being angry. She hadn't decided the pain was necessary because it had made her stronger. She simply understood that if she sent the email, she would spend the next several weeks watching his life again. She would wait for the reactions, the collapse of his business, the public shame, and the moment when he finally admitted that she had won. Daniel would once again become the center of every day. The following morning, Claire deleted the draft. She gave Rachel copies of the messages relevant to the financial case. She left the rest in the archive. The final meeting took place 15 months after Daniel left the house. Claire arrived early and sat beside Rachel. The documents, a pen, and a yellow notepad filled with her own notes lay in front of her. Daniel entered with his attorney. He gave Claire a brief nod and sat across from her. He was no longer wearing his wedding ring. For the first 2 hours, other people did most of the talking. They discussed the debt, the company, the money from the condo sale, the documents Claire had signed herself, and the guarantee created without her involvement. The creditor agreed to release Claire from the disputed loan. The remaining blue hair and obligations stayed with Daniel and the company. Claire accepted responsibility for $76,000. No more. She retained the right to use her college sketches, photographs, and design work whose authorship she could prove. Daniel kept Bennett Renovations, the company he had built, and would now have to say without Claire's credit or unpaid labor. When they reached the last few terms, Daniel pushed the documents away. You got everything you wanted. Claire looked at him. No, they took the money from a house, left me with the company's debt, and Lucas doesn't work for me anymore. That was his decision. He made it after you showed him the documents. He brought them to me. Daniel clenched his jaw. You could have talked to me. About the laptop you told him to wipe? His attorney said something quietly, but Daniel ignored him. I was trying to save the company. By using my name, I thought I could pay it all back in time. But you didn't. And now, because of one mistake, you've destroyed everything we built. Claire felt the old words rising inside her. She could remind him of the years she had worked without pay, the dinners, client meetings, children, paint colors, sketches, and houses that had sold because of her work. She could try once more to prove what a good wife she had been. Claire placed one hand on her pen. I'm not going to list my sacrifices anymore just to prove I deserve to be loved. Daniel leaned back. So what happens now? Are you sending every message to our clients? No. He looked at her in disbelief. Why? Not for you. Then why? Because I don't want to wake up every morning and check whether you're suffering enough. Claire turned back to the documents. I used what I needed to reach a fair settlement. The rest doesn't get to control my life anymore. Daniel was silent for several seconds. Vanessa said you want to destroy us. Vanessa didn't know much about me. Rachel slid the final agreement toward Claire. Claire began to read. She didn't flip to the last page. She didn't let anyone point to where she should sign. She read every provision, asked questions, and corrected one inaccurate date. Only then did she take out her own pen. She signed the first page, then the second, and every page after that. When it was over, Daniel gathered his copies. He stopped near the door. I really am sorry it happened this way. Claire waited. He didn't say he regretted his decisions, only how everything had ended. In the past, that apology wouldn't have been enough. She would have demanded the right words. Now Claire nodded. Goodbye, Daniel. He left. Claire remained behind to place the documents in her folder. 2 messages were waiting on her phone. One from Emma. How are you? One from Lucas. Is it over? Claire sent them the same reply. Yes, I'm going home. She placed the phone in her purse and left the room. The debt, the work, and years of rebuilding were still ahead of her. But for the first time, the word home meant a place she had chosen for herself. For years later, Claire had learned to begin each workday with the doors locked. The studio didn't open to clients until 9. The first hour belonged to Claire and her team. She used to answer calls during breakfast, on weekends, and even in the middle of the night. She believed every delay might cost her a job, and every no might cost her someone's approval. Now she knew that people who respected her work could wait until 9. At 8:10 on Tuesday morning, Claire placed 3 cups of coffee on the table and opened the project calendar. Tasha Reed and June Miller sat across from her. Tasha had returned to work at 47 after spending nearly 10 years caring for her mother. She had a gift for fabrics and could find the right pillow in the warehouse before Claire finished describing the color. June was 58. She had once designed displays for a large department store, but after it closed, she spent several years working as a cashier. June had a habit of moving a piece of decor 2 inches, stepping back to the doorway, and deciding whether the room had started to breathe. The weekly schedule hung above the table. 3 installations, 2 furniture removals. One consultation for a small hotel. The family in Ballantyne want to add the child's room again, Tasha said. They say it's only a bed and a few accessories. Claire opened the contract. Send them the additional work form. Staging and delivery are separate charges. They want everything done by Friday. Then add the rush fee. Tasha smiled. I already did. Then why are you asking? I wanted to hear you say it again without apologizing. June laughed. A photograph of the first house, Claire's stage with Maya, hung beside the entrance. It wasn't a $450 check or a newspaper article about a successful business. It was simply a bright living room in an old ranch house in Matthews. A small plaque beneath it read, First Project, Claire Bennett Home Staging. Maya came in around 10, carrying a new furniture catalog. Her warehouse was no longer a few months away from closing. Claire's studio now rented part of the space, and Maya supplied furniture to several local real estate agents. They still argued about prices. You didn't charge enough for the chairs, Maya said, reviewing an estimate. They aren't your chairs. I'm still right. Maybe. I hate it when you answer like Rachel. Claire smiled and signed the order only after checking the quantity, price, and delivery date. The company hadn't made her rich. For the first 2 years, nearly every dollar profit went toward debt, insurance, warehouse rent, and an emergency reserve. Claire continued working evenings at the home decor store for several months until she had enough regular clients. She didn't hire her first employee until her 3rd year. The second came 9 months later. Claire still lived in the same apartment, but the cabinet door beneath the sink now stayed closed. Herbs grew in small pots on the balcony, and the living room contained things she had chosen neither to sell a house nor to suit Daniel's taste. Catalogs from shows in Savannah, Atlanta, and High Point filled one shelf. Beside them stood a photograph of Claire near the ocean during the first short trip she had taken alone. She had learned to buy a ticket, reserve a room, and leave without explaining why she deserved a break. At 11, an email arrived from the lender. Claire didn't open it immediately. First, she finished a conversation with a client, checked an invoice, and approved the schedule for the following week. Then she sat at her desk. Final payment received. Account balance, $0. Claire read the message again. $76,000. She had paid part of the debt after selling the house. She repaid the rest month by month. Sometimes in larger amounts, sometimes with minimum payments when business was slow. For a long time, the debt had felt like proof of her own foolishness. Eventually, it became only a bill that needed to be paid. Claire saved the confirmation in her financial folder and turned off the screen. At 2 that afternoon, Tasha brought in a small lemon pie. Maya said, you made the last payment today. Claire looked at Maya. Were you reading my email? I saw it by accident. On my locked computer? Then it was June. June raised both hands. I know nothing. They ate the pie from paper plates at the work table. No one made a speech. Maya only tapped her cup against Claire's. To zero, Claire repeated. After lunch, Claire closed the studio early. The following morning, Emma was receiving her master's degree in Raleigh. Lucas was already waiting outside the university center when Claire arrived. He no longer worked for his father. After several months of temporary jobs, he had joined construction companies specializing in commercial interiors. His relationship with Claire had recovered slowly. They called each other about once a week. Sometimes they spoke for only 5 minutes. Lucas still avoided discussing Daniel in detail, and Claire no longer pressed him for information. You're early, he said, hugging her. So are you. Emma sent me 7 messages telling me not to be late. She sent me 9. They smiled. Daniel stood near the stairs holding a bouquet of flowers. His company had survived, but it was much smaller. He had sold some of the equipment, stopped flipping houses, and returned to doing ordinary renovations for private clients. Daniel was no longer trying to build something enormous at any cost. Claire knew this from Lucas, although she never asked for details. Daniel approached them. Hi. He looked at Claire a little longer than necessary. You look good. I feel good. Lucas pretended to check his phone. Daniel nodded toward the coffee shop. Can we talk for a minute? Claire agreed. They moved toward a large window. Outside, students in graduation gowns were taking photographs with their families. "Lucas told me you paid off the debt," Daniel began. "I received the confirmation yesterday." "Congratulations." "Thank you." He slipped his hands into his pockets. "I think about how everything happened more often than you probably realize." Claire waited. "We were both unhappy back then," he continued. "I'm not excusing myself. It's just that a lot had stopped working between us." "That's true." Daniel appeared to relax slightly. "I knew you would understand." Understanding the reasons doesn't excuse the choices. His expression changed. "I didn't want to argue again." "Neither did I." "Then why say that?" "Because now I can see your truth and mine without abandoning either one." Daniel looked down at the flowers in his hand. "I'm sorry, Claire, not only for how everything ended. I'm sorry for what I did." Claire had waited a long time to hear those words. Once, she believed that hearing them would finally prove she had been valuable, that the right apology could return the years, her talent, and her self-respect. Daniel's words couldn't give any of that back now, because she had already reclaimed it herself. "I forgave you," Claire said. He looked up. "You did?" "Not immediately. I was angry for a long time. I wanted you to feel the same pain. I kept waiting for you to understand what you had done to me." Daniel remained silent. "Then I realized that as long as I waited for your remorse, my life was still revolving around you. And you simply stopped being angry?" "Not simply. I stopped feeding the anger every day." Claire looked toward a family taking photographs outside. "I didn't forgive you because what you did became acceptable. And I didn't forgive you because I want you back." "I understand. I forgave you because I don't want to carry our marriage into every new day of my life." Daniel nodded slowly. "Are you grateful for what happened?" Claire considered the question. "I'm not grateful for the lies, the debt, or the betrayal, but I am grateful that the experience forced me to see how long ago I had abandoned myself." A faint smile touched her face. "I got myself back, Daniel, and I'm happy." He lowered his head. "I'm glad, and I hope you find happiness too." Daniel looked at her in surprise. "I mean it." "You do?" "Yes. Not with me. Our story is over. But I truly hope you find a life where you don't have to lie, risk everything, or constantly prove that you're successful." Daniel ran his thumb along the flower stems. "I still don't know how to do that." "Neither did I." He smiled. It wasn't the confident smile he once used to persuade clients and bankers. It was simply tired and human. "Thank you, Claire." She didn't ask what for. When the auditorium doors opened, they walked inside together, but sat in different rows. After the ceremony, Emma hugged her mother so tightly that the edge of her graduation cap struck Claire's cheek. "Were you crying?" Emma asked. "A little. Dad was too." "I saw." They took several photographs. In one, Emma stood between her parents. Daniel held his hands in front of him, while Claire wrapped one arm around their daughter's waist. They didn't look like a perfect family, but Daniel no longer looked defensive, and Claire wasn't trying to prove that she had won. Before leaving, Daniel offered his hand. Claire gave him a brief hug instead. There was no hope of reconciliation in it, no hidden request for him to choose her. She was simply saying goodbye to someone who had been part of her life for many years. "Take care of yourself," Claire said. "You too." She returned to Charlotte in the early evening. The studio was quiet. A large folder delivered by a courier during her absence rested on the work table. Inside was a contract to design a small boutique hotel. The central feature of the project was a welcoming lobby with a round table, tall light fixtures, and a reading area beside the window. It was almost the same idea Claire had drawn in her college portfolio more than 30 years earlier. The first page read, "Lead designer, Claire Bennett." She made coffee and sat at her desk. She read every page. She checked the deadlines, payment terms, responsibilities, and process for approving additional work. She made 2 notes for her morning conversation with the client. Only then did she open the final page. In the space labeled designer, the name had already been printed, Claire Bennett. Claire signed with her own pen. She placed the final debt payment confirmation in her financial folder and closed the drawer. The old college sketch remained on the table beside the new contract. Then she turned off the lights and carried the restored chair onto the small balcony. Claire sat with her coffee and watched the evening lights of Charlotte. Her phone remained inside. No one was waiting for her to make dinner. There were no messages that required an immediate response, and no person whose approval would determine the meaning of this day. She hadn't recovered the years she had lost, but she no longer gave away a single new day to resentment over them. The following morning, Claire would open the doors for Tasha and June. A new project would be waiting on the table, and beneath it would be her name alone.